don't know how to manage those elements, you're always going to be trying to make more money to fill a bottomless pit that you have no control over.
Simple math, but a lot of times we're not thinking about it because it certainly ain't the sexy thing to think about. Well, yeah, dude. Jumping back in here, we're moving our last one. We chatted about our cost to acquire. Now we're going to talk about our cost to fulfill. On the heels of our acquisition side of the house, it's actually going to be fairly similar. Some differences here, but it's not going to be a mind-blowing conversation like our cost to acquire one was. And yes, I know for some of you, you're like, how is talking about numbers in business mind-blowing? It is, because you want to guess what makes successful businesses successful. They know and understand their numbers. So welcome back to Beyond the Pump, where we break down the business of fitness and nutrition. How you doing today, Andrew?
Same as last time. Same as last time. Batch content delivery, baby.
There we go.
Caffeine's kicking.
I didn't have any caffeine today at all because I didn't have a pre-workout, no gym. I'm quite sore today. I did my first jiu-jitsu class last night. You probably hear it in my throat a little bit from being choked, that everything's a little sore up in that area. There's muscles that I didn't even really know exist. Like rolling around on the floor, you get sore. You get sore. I'm surprised that babies don't walk around jacked a little bit more often. I'm just going to say that.
I mean, if you think about who grows muscle the fastest, probably babies.
Yeah. So just, that's a rabbit hole we're not here for today. We're going back to cost to fulfill. Mm-hmm. So, well, here is our third of 4 on our profit per acquisition. So profit per acquisition, for those of you jumping in, is your cost or your client lifetime value minus the cost to acquire them minus your cost to fulfill them equals what the profit per acquisition is. In other words, every single time you acquire somebody, you get some new client into your business, how much money do you actually make on the other side? That's what that formula tells you. Mm-hmm. Last time we broke down your acquisition cost and what 2 key numbers go into there. Today, we're going to break down your fulfillment costs and what 2 key numbers go into that one. So, Andrew, do you have any questions out of the gates, or you want me to? I should have worn glasses during this one. I feel like just nerd out pretty hard. Feels like it would have been appropriate.
I don't really have any questions on this one. I think this one's probably the most familiar for people that are in the business of coaching, training, whatever. Because obviously people see the dollars for the most part coming into their account. People usually don't spend as much time looking at what's leaving their account. And in fact, the average consumer has about 17 subscriptions that they'll pay on. And most of those are like when you think about subscription, rent will be one of those, your phone, about 10 of the normal ones, right? But then you think about the other 7 that are unaccounted for, like you have 7 different streaming services. And you start to realize that you're paying $140 because you're doing the high-end ad-free version. And that's $140 a month that, let's be honest, like once you watch HBO Max, like you burn through that in a month, you don't really need to continue to pay that. So this is one of the eye-opening things where I think it's really important for people to consider that it's not what you make, it's what you keep that really makes or breaks early business owners. And that if you have to have a certain level of financial discipline and budgeting skills. And if you don't know how to manage those elements, you're always going to be trying to make more money to fill a bottomless pit that you have no control over. So if you create a bottom in that and you know what your backdrop is and you're responsible for maintaining those margins, I think that ultimately is really helpful. So that's my 2 cents on the big picture of it. But from a
so you mentioned the subscriptions, and I'll take it a step further, just any of your expenses. I suggest every business owner twice per year rips apart their QuickBooks, which I'm assuming you're using QuickBooks to track your expenses. We'll have a conversation separately about that. But you rip apart your QuickBooks or your bank account and understand pretty much every single dollar that has come in and come out. I suggest you do it in Q1 and Q3. I'll give you the reasons why. So if you have all of these subscriptions and some of which you're no longer using, you're throwing money away. And typically it's like, who cares? It's $20, $30. Like, what's the motivation? Well, over the course of the year, $30 adds up to $360. You have 10 things that are all $30 a month. That's $3,600. That's substantial. That adds up. That's a couple of car payments. That's a couple of phone. That's more than a year's worth of phone bill payments. Like, there's a lot in there. So I get the one $30 thing doesn't matter, but multiple $30 things do. So here's the thing that I would say. When you close out your year prior, you're thinking about your taxes, you're dealing with all that crap, you're already in your expenses in Q1. Take the extra hour or two and look at every single dollar you spent last year. And is there anything that you need to cancel or just shut down or not use anymore? Because I switched CRMs, I didn't cancel my old one. Like, those things just happen. I have my Google G Suite account has cost me $110 a month, but there's only 2 team members on the team. Well, have you canceled the other licenses that you have? Like, just look at some of those things. The second time I suggest you do it is in Q3. So what is that? July, August, September. The reason I suggest you do it then, and I would say September specifically, is you now get yourself set up for a really key buying time of the year, which is Black Friday in November. So if you look at your stuff during that time, what are the things that you're definitely continuing to use? Say CapCut as an example. They do a really good Black Friday deal. If it was anything for your business, where you can potentially, or Canva. A lot of coaches are using Canva for graphics and things like that. Makes it easy. Some of our podcasting stuff, we look at Black Friday. But what you can do is you go in and you can at that point in time switch to usually some type of annual plan. So you got to keep cash flow in mind, but you can go and switch in that moment and usually pay a slightly larger amount one time to get 40, 50, 60% discounts during that time of year. So quick thing on that, just from operational expense standpoint, when you're already in your books in Q1, cancel the things you don't use anymore. In late Q3, take a peek at what you have going on and what you know you'll be using and leverage those Black Friday deals, because why not save money? Again, if you only have $1,000 in your bank account, don't go spend $600 on a yearly subscription of something just because you're saving 50%. Cash flow is king. But if you have the means, go save that money because it just makes sense. And if it makes sense, it makes dollars. So all of that to say, our fulfillment costs, profit per acquisition model tells us that our lifetime value minus our acquisition minus our fulfillment is how we can calculate how much we're actually making every single time we acquire a consumer. We spoke about in the last episode on your acquisition side. This time it's fulfillment. Anything fulfillment is going to effectively be any remaining expense in your business. And yes, you as a business owner, as it pertains to profit per acquisition, are an expense. So keep that in mind. Now, any other expense, I'm going to say it again, any other expense in your business that is not marketing and sales related is an operational fulfillment cost. So that's the first thing you're going to do. If you had,
so like conferences,
what was that?
Like conferences,
anything.
Like certifications, like your EverFit, True Coach, Train Heroic, Chronometer, your softwares, your cell phone,
anything. You go
literally
any other dollar. If $10,000 came out of your account last month and you said $5,000 was for marketing and acquisition costs, guess how much should be in the operational costs? 10 minus 5 equals 5. Okay.
What?
It is witchcraft. So any expense, in other words, if you go in and you add up how much you spent on acquisition and how much you spent on marketing, you add those together, that should equal the number of dollars and cents that came out of your bank account in that same time frame. I'm talking about last month because that's the common way we do it. So all of those other expenses are in there. That's how much we spent on fulfillment. We take that number and we now need to understand how many people did I spend time fulfilling upon? And at the end of the day, your cost to acquire is going to resemble a similar idea of your cost to fulfill per person in a time frame. Now, here's the one thing about fulfillment that can get a little bit tricky. Cost to acquire is a one-time thing. Your cost to fulfill is going to be a little bit of kind of witchcraft because you have that monthly. So what we want to look at and what we'd like to see is you want to be able to do both numbers. What is my monthly cost to fulfill per client? Simple math. If you have 10 clients and you spent $10,000 on fulfillment, it costs you $1,000 per client to fulfill on them. I'm telling you, $1,000 is outrageously high. It should not be that number. But sometimes you're going to look at this information and be like, oh, wow, it is that high. Well, you're probably spending money on things you shouldn't be spending money on at that point in time. If you don't have a team, that number should be well below $100. If you have a team, that number should probably not be higher than 150 to 200, the absolute max. If you're doing super high level concierge coaching and you're paying your coaches $200, $300, $400 a month, and you're sending people, labs, and you're working on supplements and vitamins and all these things, it might go higher. But I'm going to assume that right now your cost to fulfill should be somewhere in the no team, $100 or less, with a team, $300 or less. And that's a very generalized number.
Yeah. Well, one thing to contribute on that real quick is that you should also, as you're figuring these numbers out, factor yourself in the way that you would pay a coach, because it'll just help you start to wrap your brain around when you do need help, should you grow that large and that's where you want to go. Like now you already have it budgeted for that. You just take yourself out and plug another coach in. So I like to tell people to start doing that early. And treat yourself like an employee.
Just like if you're spending 50% of your time on your marketing and acquisition efforts and you're spending 50% of your time on fulfillment, then however much you're paying, take half of it and apply that towards your fulfillment. Because guess what? If your profit at the end of this math formula ends up being zero, but you're technically taking home money because you're going ahead and contributing what you pay yourself to the formula, which sometimes people don't, you're in a situation where if and when you hire somebody and they do some of the work you've been doing, the money you pay yourself has to go down. Or flip side, let's say your profit is, hey, every single time, every client I acquire, I make a profit of $500. Cool. Well, now you can spend up to $500 per client in profit to hire a team, and you can still pay yourself and take home the same amount of money that you wanted. And there's nuances, right? If you're sitting here, I pay myself $4,000 a month and I take home every level of profit. Like, you got to keep that stuff in mind, but there's an assumed base salary that we're kind of thinking about here. Every situation is a bit unique and everybody structures their books. And are they on payroll? Are they taking, cash withdrawals? Like, what does all that stuff look like? Obviously your taxes, your accountants, all those people are going to help you with those things. But you just ultimately want to know, with what you're paying yourself normally, what does it look like? And you now start to get a barometer of, should I hire? What'll it look like financially after I hire? Assuming all the numbers stay the same. And that's probably a bad assumption. The numbers will change, hopefully in your favor, but they can change, right? So if you're making only $100 in profit and you're paying somebody $100 in profit, the moment something takes a little bit of a hit, guess where that comes out? Whatever salary you're attributing to yourself. So you just want to be cognizant of these things.
Yeah. Well, and there's also a lot of hidden costs that people forget about as well. Because you mentioned the accountant, and that's something that might be a once a year expense that people don't really factor in. And so while they might seem like they're getting and they're paying their bills and depending on how you tax all that other stuff, if it comes time to do your tax return and file that stuff at the end of the year, and you haven't budgeted for having an accountant, which is an unforeseen expense, you might end up in a little bit of some issues right there, right? So I would say that it's just something for you to. You won't know that either until you get there, and so don't freak out. Most of the stuff, if it's a pretty small operation, you can probably figure out and absorb some of those costs. But I would say that most people, if you're looking to be a coach for a career, you want to probably keep your day job for about a year to understand what the consumer cycle is. And that's just a conservative way. Obviously, there are people that jump into coaching and make it a full-time thing and immediately and they do well. I would say they tend to be the exception versus the norm. As soon as you start putting a lot of financial pressure on yourself because your cost to fulfill is drastically like crazy, most people don't really have like a significant cost to acquire up front because they're not doing ads, they're not doing all these things. It's really just their time and effort. But as soon as you start getting and you want more leads and you want to nurture those leads and then you want to set up sales appointments and you do things like our AOM, which if you don't know what the automated outbound method is, because you know, are struggling with getting leads, like, again, we have something for you. Just comment below and give us a like so that way we know you want it and we'll send it over to you. But like you just want to probably have some kind of stability. Otherwise, you'll get really stressed out. The more stressed you are, the less creative you are. The less creative you are, the less fun you'll probably be. And the less fun you are, the less you'll stand out. And the more people probably don't want to be around you as much. And so those are the psychological effects of when you put yourself under a big nut that you can't fulfill. You know, it's just really unproductive stress for the most part. So I say, like, start small, coach a couple people on the side, and then, you know, as you get more money from that, then let that kind of control. And let's say you don't take home a single dollar your first year, but now you have a very robust system. You have an automated outbound method where you have consistent lead flow. You know, you have one or two new clients a month and you're not really stressed out about how to find these people, how to service them, how to coach them. You have your coaching systems in place, you have your referral systems in place. Like, then it might be, you know, definitely a lot more of a safe transition for you to start to make that. And again, I'm saying that that's from a very conservative perspective and process. Some people like to be a lot more aggressive and they like to build the chute on the way down and they need that pressure. So a lot of this, we're giving you the general things that we've seen across our experiences work well for most people. But there are people on either end that it just won't work for. So you want to make sure that you're thinking what's going to work for you, on what kind of brand do you want, what kind of experience you want to deliver, and really let that exploratory experience as a business owner, entrepreneur in the coaching space drive your decisions and collect the information and make your decision changes as you go through. But we also have workshops if you want to sit down and actually chat with Steve and I, and we can take you through that as well if you want some facilitated guidance.
Good call. Good call. But so on the second side, so we want to know, here's our monthly cost to fulfill. Mm-hmm. Now you want to take that number. So let's say you find out, all right, my cost to fulfill is $100. Keep the math simple. That's how much it costs me per month to fulfill on my promise that I made to my clients, per client, etc. Okay, great. If a client stays with you on average for 6 months, and we're going to get into this in a little more depth in the lifetime value conversation, but if they stay with you for 6 months, you now need to take that monthly fulfillment cost and multiply it by the length of time they stay with you. In this scenario, they stay with you for 6 months, times $100 per month is the total cost to fulfill on that promise is $600. So now the formula is starting to come together. In our prior scenario, we said it cost $1,000 to acquire somebody. We now know that it cost us $600 to fulfill on our promise that we made to them. Well, at this point in time, you now understand that it cost you $1,600 to do business with that client that you got. So we need our lifetime value to be greater than that, or it's just not going to work. Simple math. But a lot of times we're not thinking about it because it certainly ain't the sexy thing to think about. So quick recap, how much are you spending operationally? Every expense that is not your marketing, not your acquisition, not your sales goes in this. Step one, dividing, you got how many people you're actually servicing every single month. So, right, $10,000 or let's say $1,000 and I have 10 people. Great, that's $100 per person per month. Okay, we have that 100. Final step, they stay with me for 6 months on average. So that 100 times 6 gives you my total cost to fulfill on a promise per client that I acquire is $600. We now have two of those three important numbers for us to understand the business that we're building and what we have going on and how the financial side of things is starting to shape up and work. Hopefully this is making sense. Appreciate you jumping on with us today. This is number 3 of 4. We're going to jump back in, come in. We're going to go over our lifetime value. which is probably one of the most interesting and fun ones. This one will be a little bit longer, but it is going to tie all of this together. So now you have an overall understanding of profit per acquisition. You have those 3 key KPIs that we like to look at: value, acquisition, and fulfillment. And we've broken down on the acquisition side the 2 numbers that go into there. On the fulfillment side, the 2 numbers that go into there. And next up will be our lifetime value. So until next time, thank you for jumping in. If this was helpful, throw us a like, a heart, ask some questions if you have those questions, and we will see you later.